the money that we do spend that goes towards public schools, like if there was ever money that we should ever spend in the United States, I feel like on educating our children should probably be that thing.
I think there's also a level of naivety to presume that any federal funding that is given to particular educational institutions is not going to come with some kind of requirement that they teach a particular thing or lean in a particular direction, or at least have some rules associated with how this money is going to be allocated.
So whoever this guy is debating Destiny seems to be cooking right now.
As per Trump's stated intention, the Department of Education should be abolished. Move. Brett and Destiny, come on up. All right, you have 4 minutes to have a conversation.
So for the majority of my career, I was actually a high school teacher, and there seemed to be no reason for the federal government to have any input into what was being taught around the various states. And I presume the same could be said here in the United States, where you could have competition between states in terms of education outcomes, and indeed private versus public. Why the Department of Education at the federal level needs to exist at all, I'm yet to be persuaded.
So I think when we talk about education, there's two huge different conversation topics, and one is kindergarten, which is pre-first grade through 12th, so the end of high school, and then there's college. So separating.
So if you guys don't know what's going on here, Destiny is a left-leaning, I don't know the right word for it, left-leaning news source or left-leaning content creator, and he's debating conservatives on DEI policies as well as the Department of Education. Let me know who you guys agree with the most throughout the video, and at the end of the video, please make sure you subscribe, and let's continue.
Putting those two things out, if we're looking at high school and earlier, the Department of Education, I'm pretty sure they just basically provide funds. They don't do curriculum direction. I think all the federal government does is I think there's a set of federal standards, like we want people to take tests to be able to like read or do math, but they don't do curriculum direction whatsoever, so there seems to be money for public education across the states.
So where does that money come from initially? Of course, it comes from the taxpayer. So if it was never taken in the first place, presumably parents could have more money to give directly to their child in order to educate them in whatever way they see fit. Again,
how does that money get to the teacher?
Well, perhaps it never gets to the teacher. Perhaps they're homeschooled. Perhaps there's a whole bunch of different ways in which you educate your child outside of the usual structures of the schooling system. I don't think most
parents have time to educate their own children like that. We probably need schools. I think they're pretty important, no? Like to have, like it frees up both parents to work. It provides a common place for common education, so everybody's kind of learning similar stuff, so we all know everybody can like read and write.
At the moment, there's a lot of two-income households precisely because the cost of living is so high, and the cost of living is so high, at least in part because taxation is so high. Taxation wouldn't be so high if the Department of Education was no longer there.
I don't think that it's going to have that big of an impact on taxes, and I think that the money that we do spend that goes towards public schools, like if there was ever money that we should ever spend in the United States, I feel like on educating our children should probably be that thing.
I think there's also a level of naivety to presume that any federal funding that is given to particular educational institutions is not going to come with some kind of requirement that they teach a particular thing or lean in a particular direction, or at least have some rules associated with how this money is going to be allocated.
So whoever this guy is debating Destiny seems to be cooking right now. I'm not going to sit here and say that we should dismantle the Department of Education. I will sit here and say something that we all should agree with, at least if you're being objective, that the current education system in America needs some reforming. We all are aware of this. There are entire school systems in Baltimore where none of the children are reading on grade level, where none of the children are proficient in math. None of them. Entire school systems. Whether or not you'll argue that that's a reason we should get rid of the Department of Education, or whether or not you'll argue that's a reason we should add more money to the Department of Education, because both sides, different sides of the same coin. We can all agree that the current school system in our country needs some reform, needs something to change, something. I haven't researched enough about this specific topic to say we should get rid of it or we should keep it. I'm not going to sit here and argue that. I will say, though, we do need to make some changes to our education system. We really do. We have kids who graduate high school, they can't even read on a grade level. They can't read at all. No wonder people don't take a lot of college seriously. They look at high schoolers who they know, or they look at their peers who get into school and they're like, he can't even read. But anyway, let's continue.
Whether it be to states or to schools directly or wherever the money happens to be going.
I mean, it goes to the states and the state decides how they want to divvy it up. It's not like the federal government is picking, like, Alabama teaches the wrong type of science so you don't get money or whatever. It's just money that's dispersed to, like that at that level from K through 12, I think only like 15% of their budgets come from the federal government anyway. But there aren't strings attached. We would know it's a public institution, right?
Why can't the states take care of this themselves? Why can't state taxation take care of state-based education? Why do we need additional taxation at the federal level in order to be divvied up amongst the various states?
I mean, you don't necessarily need it, but it would just mean that there'd just be less money going to especially poorer school districts. The way that most schools, I don't know if it's the same in other countries, but in the United States, most schools are funded by property taxes. So if you live in a rich area, you have a rich school. If you live in a poor area, you've got a poor school. If you reduce the federal disbursements to states for education, it just means the poor schools would just probably be worse off for it.
Yeah, I don't mind if schools actually don't have as much money as most people think they do, because having been a teacher myself, I can see the hazards with industrial scale education, whether it be in the public sector or the private sector. I think that it's a rather better idea if parents take a more direct hand in the education of their children.
Is there a single successful example of this in the world right now?
The existence of the education system as we understand it now is only a fairly recent invention over the last few hundred years or so. Prior to that, human civilization managed to get on quite well without having industrial education where kids sat in classrooms and were all taught the same thing.
All right.
He actually made a pretty good point, and this is something that I honestly didn't know. I just assumed that the Department of Education always existed. Don't ask me why I assumed that. But I literally just assumed that it was always here. However, it's a fairly new thing in society, meaning that the Department of Education is younger, almost 200 years younger than Harvard. Who would have thought that? That means entire Ivy League institutions existed far before the Department of Education. Who would have ever thought that? That kind of does go into why people are so willful to get rid of it. In my mind, I'm like, oh, this is something that was always here. But in their mind, they're like, no, this has not always been here. But let's continue.
I'm going to have you go back. You, sir, come in. I'm going to have you go back, and you, sir, come in.
I feel that the Department of Education should be just totally destroyed, okay? And the reason being is that of all the countries, we're number 40, we're dead last, and we spend most for, towards, each pupil's education. It's just not working, okay? And I believe that the states could do a better job if they do it on their own.
Well, you just said the reason that we need it, because as you said, we are number 40. And most of the other countries that's ahead is because, like in Trinidad, I know one of the things that the Prime Minister made all children learn is the future of the country is in the book bag of the kids. That's something we learn from school. And so putting money into education is an important thing in the development of a country. And the Department of Education is not that it's going to be teaching some right-wing or left-wing propaganda. It's there to assist the schools in developing their curriculum. It's assist the school in developing the society.
All I can respond to that is it ain't working. We can't put any more money into it. I think it should go to the states. The states should...
How do we know it's not working?
Well, because our kids aren't performing. I mean, we're number 40 out of 40, okay? We're dead last, and we're spending more money than, every other country, to educate our students. So you're going to throw more money at it, and it still won't work?
One of the reasons that's not working, and I'm a math and science teacher, one of the reasons it's not working is because there are too many restrictions on what we can teach the kids. Taking books out of the school curriculum, saying we can't teach about slavery, saying we can't teach about black civil rights. Stop doing that. Teach everything. Teach everything, right, and let the kids decide where they want to go.
All right, we're out of time. Everybody reset to the neutral, please. As per Trump's...
Before we go any further in this video, let me know what you guys think. Do you support the Department of Education, or are you one of the people who say, get rid of it? Because both sides are making pretty fair points. If we spend the most money he said out of 40. I don't really know what the 40 are. I'm assuming he's referring to countries where education is counted. So if we're for number 40 out of 40 countries where education is ranked and we're spending the most money, then there is an argument for getting rid of the Department of Education. However, getting rid of something is not always the answer. There could be reforms, like the teacher said, where there's a lot of restrictions on what children are taught. However, I'm not here to fight or defend getting rid of the Department of Education. I'm not a legislator. What I will say is, let me know what you guys think in the comments below on the future of the Department of Education. Should we keep it? Should we get rid of it? So on and so forth.
Executive order, all DEI programs should be abolished. Move. Why don't we have you, sir, come forward? Why don't we have you come forward?
So first off, DEI. When we talk about what DEI is, it's already been found unconstitutional to have quotas for how many people that you put into college or that you hire, I guess. So that's not what I'm agreeing with when I say we should not totally get rid of DEI. That's why I'm not on absolutely disagree. But what I do think is that having programs like Latinos in finance or the GSA, I don't think that's terrible. I don't think that we should get rid of those programs simply because they're considered DEI. I think that DEI can do a lot of good, and it's been demonized by the media.
Well, as I understand DEI, it means that you're hiring people because of their sex or because of their race, and that's, to me, I thought that was completely illegal. I was an employer for 35 years, and I only hired people that were the best people for the job, that made money for me, because that's how I kept other people employed and was able to keep the business going. I don't think the government should be any different than that. Nobody's discriminating against anybody. You're picking the best person, that's it.
No, and I agree with that. I believe that we should have meritocracy in hiring. But I don't think that under DEI that's necessarily threatened. So DEI, what that might look like is if you are a college, right, and you're choosing between two people to admit into your undergraduate program, and one person is a black person from a low-income neighborhood who does not have rich and well-connected parents, and they have, let's say, a 3.9 GPA, but they don't have as many extracurriculars as a white kid that has well-connected parents and a ton of extracurriculars, and also the same GPA. I don't think that if you were to say, like, okay, well, they're equal, they should be seen equally, I think you should give more preference to the black kid that put more work into finding these extracurriculars, into getting their GPA up, because there's so many. It's not just like.
I always love these type of debates because they always prove to me one thing: the majority of sane, and I repeat the word, sane Americans want the same thing. Meaning we all want fair hiring practices. We all do not want discrimination on the premise of race, sex, or gender. However, the biggest differences a lot of humans have, particularly when it comes to liberal beliefs and conservative beliefs that I've noticed, is that they have different ideologies or different methods of getting an approach. For example, a big left or liberal belief is that DEI promotes fair hiring, and a big conservative or Republican belief is that DEI goes against fair hiring. Both are arguing on the premise of wanting fair hiring. They're just arguing on the road or pathway to get there. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below.
We need to give opportunities to black people. It's like a class-based thing. Black people often have, because they are on average of a lower socioeconomic class than the average white person in America, they don't have, on average, as many opportunities. So if we were to afford those opportunities, it would be better and more equitable.
I believe you're talking about two different things. It's not a numerical thing. That's why you have human resource departments and human resource managers who make the decision of what's better for the company or the entity to hire, to do the benefit for them, and not some government restriction saying you must hire so many people of this sexual orientation.
We're out of time. Brett, come forward. Can you want to, real quick, last response?
Isn't that exactly what this executive order is doing? Telling people and people that are hiring in the government who they need to hire and what their hiring practices should be? If you're against that, then why aren't you on my side?
All right, I'll give you last word.
I'm not sure I understood it.
Okay, then I'm going to give nobody the last word. Okay, go back there, sir. Brett, come forward, and you go back, and you come forward. Okay, 2 minutes. Go.
Equal and equity is not the same thing. Okay? And that's what equity means. Because I came from and he's trying to say it, because I came from a low-income neighborhood, may not be that I have the same opportunities that you do, that you have. And you might have the opportunity, you might know this guy, who knows another guy, who can get you a good job. But I have the same educational skill, but I don't know this guy. How do I compete? How do I compete with that? So that's what equity is. It's not equal, it's equity.
Okay, let's give him a chance.
Yeah, so I think we agree. We shouldn't, is your argument, be discriminating on the basis of any kind of characteristics. And so if someone has been hard done by at some point, it's kind of a form of discrimination. But that's not to say that the remedy is to increase the amount of discrimination against people who are perceived to have some kind of advantage. What is perceived to be an advantage at times often isn't. For example, skin colour is sometimes a proxy for an advantage, when of course we know it isn't. Now, when it comes to income or something like that, clearly it's going to be the case that universities, for example, will be taking that into account, and I think they already do. Whether or not the federal government needs to have DEI programs in order to remedy the great inequities throughout the nation is another thing.
Well, okay, so, and that's why I'm not on the absolute disagree, because I don't think the government needs to mandate it, but I think it needs to be in every single company. Because, again, the opportunity that you may have, I may not have.
And I love the fact that the teacher is saying the opportunity that you may have, I may not have, which is why I am for equity. It's just that when it comes to equity based on the premise of race, the reason I am not 100% for that is because white people suffer too. Asian people suffer too. All I'm saying is that suffering and black are not synonymous, and that's what they're trying to imply. Being black is not synonymous with suffering. So when it comes to equity, helping someone, giving them a boost up, white people sometimes need that boost up too, because there are very poor white people who need scholarships to go to college or they won't be able to go. There are very poor Asian people who need scholarships to go to college or they won't be able to go. Being financially disadvantaged or being poor or being hurt, being hurt in society is not just happening to black people. And that's what I'm saying. And that's actually what the professor say. However, he ties it back to race as if other races cannot experience these same challenges. There are a lot of white students who grew up in the foster care system. There are a lot of white families whose family doesn't pass 20,000. There are a lot of white families who have 4 or 5 siblings living in a 1-bedroom apartment with no money. There are a lot of white families who got their power turned off before. All I'm saying is suffering is not race specific. That's all I'm trying to get at. And if we can help those people, I would be for it. I know a lot of people disagree with me, and that's fine.
And there are a lot of reasons, and I can go down a whole lot of, it will take an hour for me to go down just half of the reasons. And it all manifests from slavery to Jim Crow to what that we do not have the same opportunity as you.
We're out of time, I'm going to give you the last word.
As the gentleman said earlier, if you're running a company, as much as I might have compassion for the various people that I'm employing, fundamentally the purpose of my existence and the reason why I'm running this company is to make money, not only for myself, but for my employees. And I'll make more money if I hire and promote on the basis of
we have the same
competence.
education. We have the same education.
Then we'll have to decide, not based on skin color, not based on anything, but on...
All right, I'm going to give you the last word.
Yeah, but we have the same education. We have the same level. We did both make 13, 15 the SAT. But he knows somebody. He knows the CEO. I don't, because I didn't have that opportunity to get into that neighborhood.
Maybe you're a really nice guy and we'll promote you on the basis of that. So it might not come down to qualifications.
That's what DEI is. Because I didn't have the the opportunity to live in his neighborhood. We both have 1350 on the SAT. What do I do?
What if you're a really nasty, mean person who doesn't work well with others, but he happens to work really well with others? Then we distinguish on that basis.
But how do you know that? You've never met me.
No, aren't we talking about I'm a human resources manager
that's
inside
it.
of a...
How do you know that? You don't have the opportunity to meet me unless we have a DUI program that brings in different people so you can meet me.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna.
Let me know what you guys think about this debate. I think it's a very good debate, and both sides are making pretty interesting points. I'm going to end the video here. My name is LFR JoJo. Comment down below what side you agree with, and if you want more videos like this. And I'll see you guys later. Peace.